Okay, welcome back everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back means, could you please sit down? Yeah, hopeless. That was 5 minutes behind. Never mind. We've got a few attempts at this. By the time I get to your slot later on, Bob, it'll all be fine. So, Slido results. Yes, gives you some sense. A degree of pessimism, but I'm told only 68 responses. So that was the pessimists in the room who've been responding so far. And I was saying, actually, over the break, that I suppose to some extent, if it was 100% yes and 0 no, I'd be even more worried because perhaps we weren't being realistic about some of the challenges we're facing into. So we'll see how that goes as we go through, but just encourage you to carry on inputting to Slido, only 68 so far. So let's get the optimists on board. So I flagged this session very much about the innovation and the Innovation Forum, and our very first speaker today is going to be Ben Tam. He's the Managing Director of R Utilities, and Ben's going to focus on encouraging innovation and collaboration, the Ofwat Innovation Fund, and the latest developments and leakage-related projects. So we're doing very quick, 10 minutes, and then 5 minutes Q&A at the end. So over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. So on the webinars and the virtual conferences we've done, myself and Harry have done a sort of double act in the last couple. So Harry couldn't make it today, sent his apologies. I'm going to go step in to really talk about how the fund has grown, developed, some of the leakage aspects in there, some of my thoughts on it. Harry provided some of his slides, so I'm going to go through those, and then I've got a few thoughts of mine at the end, and welcome questions, which I can see are coming through on Slido already. So Harry would always start with the key strategic themes. We know those are pretty broad. We know that underneath that we've had a lot of different types of applications coming into the fund, and luckily underneath that leakage comes in and can hit a number of them, which helps strengthen the bids. And one of the entry things which Harry would talk about is actually how do you strengthen by getting more of the strategic themes nested into certain projects, and the one I think Finn is going to talk about in a moment is a really good example of that. It's all been about building the sector's capacity to innovate. And the key one on here, which would flag up, would be the collaboration part. Having conversations with colleagues around the room, entering into this event. I think the biggest thing so far from the Innovation Fund has been getting the sectors to come together and collaborate and think about some of these big challenges in a way which hasn't happened before. Yes, there's teething problems to get the money out there. There's different ways of making the process slicker. But ultimately, this is going to be the starting point. And it's great to see the first rounds of projects which are out there being delivered. Most of you will have followed this area. So we're in a moment where you've got two rounds which have been delivered or gone through the process. We've got the Catalyst and the Breakthrough. And we're just about to announce the new Catalyst Part 2 winners. Unfortunately, that's on the 22nd. I was hoping if Harry was here, he might have given you a heads up on what those are. I don't actually know what the winners are in that category. But so if you watch closely on the website, all these comms will be going out very early next week. So hopefully there'll be a couple more leakage ones in there. And I know there's a couple of people in the room who have put entries into that space. So reflecting on the fund and what Harry's been going around the sector talking about is that collaboration part. And I welcome talking to other people, getting that feedback, face to face whilst we're in here, about how that's going, how we can see that making transformational change. We're really seeing that kind of risk profile changing, and again, I'll keep referencing where Finn's going to end up talking about. It's we don't know all the answers, and we need to get the cleverest people in the sector together, working collaboratively and cross-sector, and that's a huge thing that we've started to see coming through. And we're seeing innovation enabling projects. So we don't know what the solution is at the end, but we're going through and enabling it by doing this piece of work, which, listening to that first session this morning was all about, we don't know what the solutions are, but we've got some of the infrastructure now in place that we can start to build on it. Some of those clever things that data scientists can put together in the right way, that will come from the infrastructure from our smart metering and others. There are two which have a sort of more of a leakage aspect, probably very well known to you, these projects out there. Safe Smart Systems, coming up in a moment, led by a few water companies, Anglian, Affinity. And it's really looking at how AI, the machine learning aspects, get us to an autonomous operation of our water networks. And that's, it's a huge step for us. And there's a lot of learning which needs to go on in that space. The second one, and I never know what that picture is, by the way, if someone can already tell me. It's like, it gets used with this dark fiber one. I think it looks quite good, so it stays up there because it's more visual than all the text you're going to get. But it's an initiative looking at using optical fibers to detect leakage, something which has been tried previously, but actually, as I'm going to come to some of my later slides, will be, seeding some of this innovation. So this work needs to happen. And it's not got a financial payback in the market yet. It's innovation, it's research. And through this transformational fund, we can get some of that going, but there's other pots of money out there which need to be used. IPR comes up every time. Judith asked me to talk about it, well, I'll ask Harry. So I'll give a small attempt here just to sort of break down where we are with it so far. IPR is always going to be a challenge. If it could be really simplified, it would be hand out money, see what good things happen out there. That can't really happen in most instances, especially when it's going to be money which comes from customers. So originally it was all about background IPR being protected. And in the catalyst stream, we had this new one around giving this alternative IPR option, enabling you to license out some of the foreground IPR as we went through. Interestingly, the only stat and insight that I have from this, which I could get, was that from all of the applications which went in, which I think was around the sort of the 20 mark, it was about 50-50 choosing this, which does give you some indication that either it wasn't such a blocker, the IPR side, or the second option still isn't the right option, and so people are sort of hedging and they don't quite know where it's going to work. It's in progress. I'll come after this. There's a consultation which will be going out, and it's about how can we continue to improve this, how can we take away some of the red tape and enable our sector to get on and innovate in the way that it needs to. So closing on some of the things which Harry was going to talk about, it's the learning collaboration has been key. The greater pace they want to see. They want to see this intention to fail fast, which actually I can sort of challenge Harry because he's not here. I'd say as Ofwat and the judges on that, they've got to be really open-minded about what that looks like in terms of some of the applications going through. It's not easy to put things in there which cost that out, have evidence bases, but I think that's the right direction. And that goes to that last point about it being more iterative and not linear. It's not straightforward to the end point here. It's got to take different twists and turns, and we need to take and support each other on that journey. The consultation will come out, so everyone in this room will be invited to feedback into it, and they're also trying to get more people from outside the sector looking in. So welcome the challenges around the IPR coming through there, ideas around it, what would make things better for you, especially around leakage, can all be fed into that. And I had a couple of just closing sort of thoughts and a couple of slides at the end from my perspective, so build on things that Harry was talking about. And driving innovation, a lot of talk is about how do you get innovation encouraged. That was the name of this session. We talked about customers this morning. I tend to talk more and more about citizens at the moment because we're all customers. I think we all find it quite hard to engage with all the other utilities out there, but we all want to do the right things. There are things like stormwater harvesting and how that might be used. There's also the link now to the environment, which Peter talked about so clearly at the end. I think that wave of interest about what's going into our rivers and watercourses, although it can be negative at times, it's actually engaging the public to how we do things differently. And leakage on its own, it also comes into this whole picture for customers, for citizens. They see water companies doing the whole thing. They don't just see us about leakage, they don't just see us about those parts. So how do we join that up together and leverage that? Plastics was that other opportunity to do that, and to an extent, I think we did that. It's in the mindset. Health monitoring is not so relevant to the leakage side, but the third one, carbon and energy and greenhouse gases, that's driving business cases in a new way. Financial payback is not the number one thing on this. And how do we actually get ourselves to these net zero targets? Some of that is going to cost us in a different way, and we need to find ways to back up why we're going down that investment. And enabling new models comes from what we're talking about in terms of the smart metering. We need that data to be able to do some of the things around water offsetting, water neutrality in a way which we can get more line of sight with customers. And so those sorts of things are driving that innovation. So I'll round up with a couple of points here is that Also, the other part of this is investment. So Harry talks about the Innovation Fund. Smart technology investment in the last 2 years has had about 100 million into smart technology, which includes some of the things on here, which you can see down the bottom, which are leakage related. Overall, in that time, climate tech from the PwC report, that's lots, which is a really wide category, including carbon capture, storage, energy, electric vehicles, is nearly 59 billion in that time. Of course, there's a water element in some of that climate tech, but there's a huge disparity here. I think some of our role as leakage practitioners, but water companies, is how do we leverage some of that? And also that will bring new diversity into the sector. So if you start talking about climate technology to certain groups, that water has a huge part to play in this. Can we leverage some of that funding to come in to help us solve some of the big challenges I see ahead of us? The trial reservoir is something that I'll set up in response to trying to get trials moving. So there's the Innovation Fund by Ofwat there, which does a good case in terms of the research and development side and getting some impact. But this is about taking some of the nearer term technologies and scaling them through quickly and taking the risk away from water companies and the technology companies. So turning the table slightly to give the money to the technology company to do a funded trial. If that trial works, can the water companies purchase off the back of it? It's a new step in that direction, and it's just another part of that trial finance to help us move that way. And so again, this could be applied into the leakage side and alongside the Ofwat fund. My final one is that being a consultant, it's easy to talk about trends. And the one coming down the line, and you'll see in the headlines, is all about deep tech. And I always argue that the water industry has always been deep tech. We've had to have solid engineering solutions, and more recently, we've layered in the technology on the smart side. To get us through to some of the big challenges, I listened intently to what David Jacobs was saying around, optimization has taken us this far. We've now got some real, the next level of challenges about repair. That's in that deep tech side. It's good, we talked about robots in this sector for however how long, but how do you actually finance it to get to a point where we can purchase it? I think that's the kind of conversation we need to have around the Ofwat Fund. It's about how we need as a sector to actually drive some of that performance together. Thank you very much.
So Ben, you can't leave without the odd question.
Yep.
When Ofwat set up this fund, they talked a lot about the lack of innovation that was taking place in the water industry, and they talked about needing to have a transformational level of innovation. I was just interested from your perspective, do you think we're getting there? Do you think, what's the report card look like? If Ofwat was a judge of this and you're giving a view, where do you think we are?
I think it's kind of gone past that expectation of where it could have been, actually. The sector itself has put in a huge number of ideas in that first tranche, those first 2 competitions. And it's been testing how far can you push transformation. And I think there's been some good feedback both ways about, the sector was challenged. Well, that's not innovative enough. And we've been able to push back and say, well, it's really needed because of the enabling innovation, which is then going to allow you to get the transformational stuff. You can't just go from 0 to a big bang immediately. There are steps. And the second thing I really think is that transformational innovation, those ideas from the sector are only going to build on the ones we've just put through. Mm-hmm. We're hitting this moment of the resources to deliver the projects we've currently got are using up. And also the ideas which we had at the beginning have got to a point. So it now gets us to a space where we can really put those big ideas in to take us to that next level. So I think we've got through some of the flushing out part of it. And it's going to, the next couple of years in this is going to be really exciting.
Cool, thank you. And any particular, again, looking at sort of macro view, any big gaps that you see? You see all the submissions going, any sort of big areas where you think, I'm surprised we haven't put a submission in as an industry in that area?
I think we've covered quite a few bases that just haven't been funded because they've been quite good, there's been high quality of innovation entries coming through. I'd really like to see something spearheading the repair side. And there was, I'm passionate about seeing how that market gets developed on that, because it's not, we can't buy anything as a sector yet, so you can't get a payback for these things. So it's this kind of a really advanced research. I want I would like to see the UK being the hub of that research, to be honest, because as you said this morning, we are one of the markets which is the highest globally for adopting these new technologies.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much indeed, Ben.
Cheers.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And what was it, the Peppa Pig example with the, what was his name, the bull? What was the name of the bull? Come on, somebody. Mr. Bull. Yeah, so we need to move away from Mr. Bull. Maybe that's the opportunity when we come to the repairs. So now I'd like to welcome Carly Perry, who's a consultant executive lead for Spring and a senior manager energy and utilities at SEER Partners. Carly, with the rest of the Spring team, including our own head of innovation at Anglian Water, Shauna Berenderson, has spent a pretty busy 6+ months getting Spring ready for launch, and she's here to tell us more about the Ofwat Innovation Fund winning project, Spring, supporting the industry to innovate and collaborate, and what can it deliver for leakage. So over to you, Carly.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Ben. Hopefully I can demonstrate the value that's coming out of the Ofwat winning projects for you all, and really excited to share more on Spring with everyone. It has been a very intense 6 or so months for the team, so I'm happy that we can now share what's actually come out of that with you. So for anybody who doesn't know the journey that we've been on, so the concept of an Innovation Centre of Excellence was born from an Ofwat strategy document a couple of years ago. And in that document, it talked about setting up a central place for innovation within the sector to look at sector-wide problems. The work that went into the Water Innovation Strategy 2050 started looking at the priorities for that Innovation Centre of Excellence. So there was a great list that was created. Arup led on that work. It was a really fantastic piece of work. That was then picked up by Upware, who submitted a bid into the Ofwat Innovation Water Competition, and that bid was successful. And so myself and a team from SEER Partners, as well as seconded people from water companies, came on board in July last year to start building out and designing the minimum viable product for Spring. So that launched in December, so everything you're going to see today is from that minimum viable product. So my goal for today is really to update you on Spring, but also try and relate it to leakage for you to tell you how Spring can help deliver against leakage. So before we go into the service offering, I just wanted to remind ourselves of what Spring is. So Spring is an accelerator that will enable collaboration within and beyond the sector to drive transformational innovation. So our vision is to be global leaders in open innovation. We appreciate that's a very big statement, a bold statement, but we want to go bold. We did over 100+ interviews with users of Spring, and everybody is behind that challenge and that vision. We've also designed our service offering to deliver against that, but we also appreciate there is a lot of excellence already happening out there. We're not here to duplicate that. We're here to hero, bolster, and add to the excellence that already exists. So all of our plan has been built around that. I also want to remind everybody of the North Star that we're all working towards. So these are the themes that are in the Water Innovation Strategy document. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend that you do go and read it. So we've got everything here from providing the services society needs, expects, and values through to enabling diverse, future-ready people. Leakage sits within delivering resilient infrastructure systems. So each of these themes in the Water Innovation Strategy have short, medium, long-term ambitions behind them. It's been developed with a huge amount of stakeholders across the sector. It will continue to be agile and dynamic and will be updated as we learn more. But this strategy is now hosted on the Spring website. So if you want to consider whether your innovation is targeting the right priorities, go and have a look at this strategy, and you can have a look at the leakage ambitions that are in it. So Spring's role is really to enable innovators to solve these problems. So how are we actually going to do that? So our service offering is split between problem solvers, problem owners. So problem solvers in this case are innovators. That could be startups, it could be consultants, it could be big supply chain companies, it could be small to medium enterprises, anybody who is solving problems. So Spring is running challenge cycles. So transformational ideas can be submitted into Spring to solve some of the big problems that are from that innovation strategy. We've built a platform, a centralized platform, that will cascade those ideas to all water companies. So all water companies across the UK and Ireland are signed up to Spring and to that platform, and will get those ideas cascaded to them. We're also building communities and partnerships. So on the platform, we've created communities against each of those innovation strategy themes, and I'm going to come on to more information on that in just a minute. We're also trying to build partnerships and introduce you to each other as much as possible. So there's a matchmaking function on that platform so that you can meet like-minded people. We also want to be able to connect people to the right test beds. So we've got a matchmaking function for test beds. So part of our ethos is partnering with people already doing excellent things. So we're working with UK Water Partnerships and Water Test Network, and we've migrated the data from their test bed facilities to Spring. And we will be able to do matchmaking functionality to try and remove the duplication of testing that's happening at the moment. We also want you to be able to leverage other funding opportunities that are out there. So on our website, you will find a list of many different funding options that you can use to progress your innovation. So we want to be able to connect you into those funds. So all of this for innovators is about minimizing costs and maximizing opportunities. From a problem owner perspective, so in this case, we're talking about water companies here. So we will work with innovation managers, we will work with subject matter experts to facilitate transformational ideas. So the ideas that come into our challenge process, we will work with the key stakeholders in water companies to actually mobilize collaborative projects on winning ideas. So we will help identify those ideas with the key stakeholders and then build partnerships to deliver those ideas. Again, we'll matchmake on test beds where needed throughout that process. Another key thing that Spring wants to do is knowledge transfer. So we've built a centralized point, again, in the platform where we can build a library of knowledge from innovation projects. And I'll give you a little bit more information on that again shortly. Innovation mentoring is something that came up in a lot of the interviews that we did with people. So people want to see a place where they can come to and have mentoring against best practice, not just from this sector, but from cross sectors doing really well in innovation as well. So all of this is about reducing duplication, accelerating learnings, and improving collaboration. We will also work closely with government and regulators. We want to be able to make sure that Spring strategy is aligned to government and regulator strategies so we can feed their priorities into challenges as well. We want to be able to eliminate any barriers to innovation, so we will be feeding back to government and regulators on barriers to work with them to unblock those. And we also want to give a clear line of sight to great things that are happening in the sector. So we'll be promoting all of that. So all of this really helps to show and improve efficiency that's happening. So Spring is a centralized platform, but not just from a technology perspective. It's a centralized platform from a business and people perspective as well. It's there to demystify the existing processes. It's there to link into open data and knowledge sharing as well. It's there to enable collaboration across the sector. So that's the service offering. We are in minimum viable product stage at the moment, so that means for the first 6 months, we're only focusing on a few of these things, then we're going to scale. So we're going to learn and iterate as we go. So 3 things that we're focusing on to begin with are challenges, communities, and knowledge transfer. So I want to give you a little bit more information on communities and bring this to life from a leakage perspective. So as I said, we've built communities against each of the innovation strategy themes. So there are 7 communities against those themes. The idea of the communities is that they are there to enable partnerships, enable relationships, enable collaboration, but also share knowledge, share thought leadership, also a place to be able to connect to funding opportunities around that particular theme. For each of the communities, we are creating co-leads. So to the point on diversity that's been made a few times, we are looking for diverse co-leads and many different lenses of the word diversity. But at the highest lens, what we're looking for is a water company representative, an academic representative, and a supply chain representative. So that should allow us to be able to bring in thoughts from different segments of the sector. So I wanted to announce the co-leads for the Delivering Resilient Infrastructure Systems community today. So we've got Jeremy Heath, and I joked earlier that I don't think I need to read his bio out again, given how many times he's on the agenda today. However, Jeremy is the Innovation Manager at SES, mechanical engineer by training, brings a huge amount of operational experience, whether it's network or data. He's the programme lead for the UCWIR Big Question, how will we achieve zero leakage in a sustainable way by 2050? Now, Jeremy's experience is really important as well, because what we're not trying to recreate the wheel here. We're not trying to recreate networks that already exist. Jeremy will be connecting into UCWIR networks, Water UK networks, and bringing all of that together into one. Then we have David Butler, who is the Head of Engineering and Professor of Water Engineering at University of Exeter. Hugely experienced and internationally acclaimed academic, manager, researcher, teacher, mentor, and consultant in the water sector. And then we've got Sally Watson, who brings a huge amount of technical excellence and is digital lead for water and environment at Mott MacDonald. She has 30 years of experience in water resources, point source pollution, groundwater flooding, wetland hydrology projects. So a huge amount of experience coming in. So these are the three co-leads who have just been appointed very recently. They are currently working on a strategy behind that community, how to connect into other networks that are happening, what content to share, how to share knowledge within that community. So in the coming weeks, we will be announcing those leads through all of our channels, and we will be starting to publish content. So I urge you to, if you haven't already registered to the platform, when you go in and ask which communities you want to be involved in, and then you will automatically get put into this community, and please engage with it and work with it as it grows. Just wanted to also cover off on challenges and knowledge transfer. So two other of our priorities right now. So on challenges, Spring has just closed its first specific challenge. So we're going to run 2 challenge cycles in the first 6 months, a specific challenge and an open challenge. The specific challenge gives a very specific problem statement around one of the innovation strategy themes. So achieving net zero was the first theme that we went for, so there was a specific problem statement to that. The open challenge will be broadly linked to that innovation strategy theme to give you an opportunity to submit much broader innovation ideas in. We'll be learning from this first cycle on achieving net zero carbon, and then we'll be iterating again. So there will be a leakage resilient infrastructure challenge coming soon. So I urge you all again to go into the platform, register, and then you'll be notified when those challenges are coming. The ideas that come in, as I said before, will be cascaded to all water companies, and we will work with water companies to facilitate a collaborative project. On knowledge transfer, so we have created a space in the platform that will be launching soon, it's not open just yet, where we will create a library of knowledge that shares learnings from innovation projects. That library will also partner with a company in the US to share a back catalogue of learnings from innovation projects in the US as well. So we're looking to partner with WaterStart in the US, who will be able to give us a springboard to more learnings as well. We'll also work with all the water companies to share learnings from innovation projects that have either come through the Ofwat Fund or have been in flight previously or have been finished. So we will be creating a place where you can go to search for leakage, and then you will be able to find learnings from projects in that place. So really just to start wrapping up, I've shown you just a few of the services that Spring is offering. We do have scale-up services, as I mentioned, innovation mentoring. We're going to be looking at innovation skills and training. We want to link into the open data efforts that are happening in the sector as well. So there's much more on the agenda for the future, but we wanted to start with something manageable, learn from it, and iterate from there. There's also a lot of thank yous to say, but this slide isn't everybody to thank. But as I said, we're building a partnership model here, so we've got some really great partnerships together already. So UK Water Partnership, Water Test Network, we're working with on test beds. We're working with Isle, Ben and the team on the challenge process. They are our challenge partner. Salesforce has been the partner behind the platform and have built a fantastic space for all of you to go in and use. All water companies are supporting this and have been a fantastic help, either financially or helping us build strategy behind this. We've had really great support from supply chain, again, both financially and helping us design the service offering. Academia are with us on this journey, and we're building ways to grow our outreach with academia, as well as government and regulators. And we're talking frequently with Ofwat about how we can align on challenges, competitions going forward so that we're not creating duplication. And then finally, just to mention, Spring's parent company is Ofwat. Ofwat has been the incubator for Spring, so a big thank you to them for helping us achieve this. So finally, just to urge you all to please go have a look at the Spring website, Spring-Innovation, please go to the platform, register, and help us test this minimum viable product. We really want to get your feedback so that we can keep improving and iterating as we grow. Thank you.
It's always helpful when Slido goes into a different mode. Marvellous. Carly, I thought it was actually worth mentioning, Heidi Mottram was a fantastic supporter of Spring in the early days. And I remember, Bob, when we were having conversations around the board table, thinking about this vague idea about what the water industry might do to kind of lift ambition up and respond to the Ofwat Innovation Challenge. She was one of the big advocates. So credit where credit's due, I think. So, Carly, question from the audience on Slido, which I've managed to find. Is it correct that leakage sits solely in the infrastructure theme?
Great question. So we put a poll out on the Spring platform to see which innovation theme we should tackle first. Achieving net zero carbon won by a couple of percentage, and there was a really great debate that happened about where leakage sits and is it actually connected to quite a few of those themes? And I think the short answer is yes, it is. They're not all mutually exclusive, so I think there is overlap between them. We decided to go with achieving net zero carbon because it won in this round and we thought it was the right thing to do. But we have taken that feedback on board, so we're going to think how we manage that overlap in the future. But no, it doesn't sit solely in that theme.
Brilliant. And you put up the innovation strategy. How have you found that useful in terms of what you're doing?
I think it's been a guiding star for us, really, in terms of we need to keep going back to that to check that what Spring is doing and what Spring is trying to enable in the sector always links back to that. So it's been a foundation for us, really, when we're designing the strategy. And also, one of the things we heard a lot from innovators was we want to know what the priorities are for the sector. It's a fantastic document to point people to signpost them to. If you want to know what the priorities are, they're all in that document.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed.
Excellent.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now it's time to hear about one company's approach to driving innovation and collaboration, and particularly encouraging those sort of new entrants into the sector. So I'd like to welcome up a team from United Utilities. We've got Kieran Brocklebank, the Head of Innovation at UU, Hannah Wardle, Network Optimisation Manager at UU, and Neil Edwards, who's the Chief Technology Officer at Fido Tech. So you're very welcome.
Good afternoon, I'm Kieran, and I'm joined by Neil and Hannah, and we're going to speak to you for about 15-20 minutes, maybe 35 minutes if we take too long. We just want to talk to you a little bit about United Utilities' experience in this innovation world, particularly relevant to leakage. And we're going to do that in just 3 little chunks. So the first chunk is going to be myself. I'm going to comment a little bit about the sector, a lot about United Utilities and our corporate approach to innovation, why we do innovation in a particular way, why we particularly seek out certain types of innovators, and some of our results and track record. Then I'll move on to Hannah, and she's going to go through some of the evolution of how innovation has helped leakage management, some of our results, and then we'll focus on some next steps. And then we'll finish with Neil from Fido, one of the companies that we've worked very intimately with, but who are now helping the entire global sector. So, firstly, my first section, and I make no apologies for pausing here, and I'd like you just to reinforce the logo in the top right. So, United Utilities, like all the water companies, we are a supporter of Spring. We've been championing a centre of excellence that can help the entire sector, not just individual companies helping everyone individually, which is inefficient and misleading. So we wanted to create a centre of excellence, and it was difficult to do on our own, so we're really pleased we've got some momentum and exposure to that. I strongly encourage you to contact Spring. get more involved. It is embryonic today in its minimal viable product, but please, please watch out, because this is going to hockey stick and accelerate up in terms of the effect and the impact it's going to have. Water companies are very supportive of its role and can see the part it can play. So what are we talking about? Well, here at United Utilities, we're one of the larger water companies and wastewater companies here in the UK. We're working in this changing regulated sector, and we've always had a focus on innovation. We have an innovation team, but it's also one of our 3 core values that we have in the organisation. We expect employees to be innovative, and we've got quite a good track record there. We know that innovation in a large corporate isn't just, inspiration or the Archimedes moment in the bath. It isn't that. It needs to be managed, coordinated, stimulated, rewarded. And so we have an innovation model, and our model has a number of components. But if I boil them down to those 4 bullet points, well, really it's about trying to connect with more and more people. That's in our organisation and outside, in the water sector and in other sectors. How can we connect with more people? How can we encourage more suppliers? You could argue the answer to all the world's problems are out there somewhere, and really the trick is, how do we throw the net wide enough to capture these great ideas? And so we do want to encourage more suppliers from within our traditional supply chain. We want to work with them. We want to work with new suppliers in the UK water sector. We want to go global, and we also want to look outside of the water sector, bringing ideas from outside water into water. The purpose of our model, though, is to make sure that innovation is promoted. And the trick with that is, can we go fast? You'll hear a lot about innovation theory, about failing fast, failing cheap. We like to succeed fast if we can. That's the ultimate we're trying to get to. And we know that we need to do lots and lots of activity to do that. But really, we're trying to go fast. We're trying to spot an idea, try and capitalise on that quickly. And then finally, our model, if we boil it down to 4 components only, it's about sharing the story. That's sharing with employees, maybe an activity that's happened in wastewater. Could that stimulate some new activity in water? That cross-fertilisation within our organisation. But also, can we talk to our customers about innovation, how it's helping us to improve customer service? And can we use innovation as our story to work better with regulators and work with other water companies? We have a number of techniques when we coordinate this innovation model. One of them is our differentiator, our innovation lab programme. If the problem in the UK water sector is we can't move from trial to rollout, then our innovation lab programme is a small step towards trying to fix that. We have employee innovation activities, that's the logo there with the pink. And we have trialling partnerships with a lot of innovators now. People who we have spotted, who've got a great product or service, we like what they're offering us today, but if we work together more closely, how could we have something tomorrow and the day after and the day after? And we need partners. We need to play on the strengths of other people to do that. So whether that's Spring, whether it's a personal partnership we have with L Marks, or whether it's working with other water companies, we're keen to play to the strengths of others. We like this open innovation model because we believe it gives benefits to all parties. We work very hard on a few things, and what we work really hard on is tapping into some unique characteristics of some of these great innovators that we meet. So diversity has already been mentioned once today, but we deliberately seek out people who speak differently or have different mindset to what we're traditionally used to, and we found that to be frustrating and stimulating in equal measure, let's say. And we do look out for that diversity. How do we get more people looking at the same idea and giving us different views? Or how do we get more people to create more and wilder and more diverse ideas? Either way, diversity is an important characteristic of our open innovation model. Curiosity, we come across lots and lots of people who do not accept the status quo. They challenge us, they ask us the types of questions we should have been asking ourselves. But actually, it's great to bring people into the organisation and let them rock the boat a little. And how do we do that? How do we listen to what they're saying and expose them to the real problems that water companies have? Come on in and see exactly how you can help us. And finally, doability. I'm not sure that is a word, but it could catch on. I think Roadmap did a few years ago, so let's go for doability. But that's all about, you know, many people have that kind of attitude that things are possible. You know, there is light at the end of the tunnel, that optimism. I think sometimes the sector can be too hard on itself, particularly when we think about, is there enough innovation in the sector? Of course there isn't, but let's not sweep under the carpet all the great thing that goes on. Let's build on what we've got. But doability, how do we fix those problems? How do we have that great attitude of fixing? And so we have a model that focuses on those 4 things at the bottom. Finding the innovators that most people don't find, persuading them to come into our sector and work with us. How do we get them to meet the right people, meet the decision makers, meet the technical experts, get that feedback? Adopting and optimizing, it's all very well innovating as a theoretical level, but you need to adopt it. You need to make that customer service change. You need to reduce the leakage by adopting the new gadget. And finally, endorsing. People tell us that we're great at making introductions to others. And we do that within sector, with other water companies, with our networks, but also outside of sector as well. So on the right-hand side for you are just the names of some companies that in most cases, those company names didn't exist a few years ago. And between ourselves and others, we've helped bring new entrants into the water sector, new suppliers who can help all the water companies. There's a few that we didn't get right. One of them is Headlight. I call it the one that got away, but they're helping other water companies right now. We can tap into that later. Our leakage sniffer dogs, Hannah's idea, is one that seems to have been the most popular innovation that we've ever had. Certainly our customers, if we want them to come to an event, if you say the dog's going to be there, we almost guarantee 100% attendance. So that's been an absolutely amazing innovation with not just leakage benefits, but brand reputation and sector reputation benefits. We've got Typhon, a new way of treating water and wastewater. We've got Data Technics, a new way of assessing pipe condition using open data. We're in early rollout there. We've got Changemaker, low carbon, 3D printing at industrial scale. So we're using that for some of our bespoke products. And finally, what you'll hear about today, Neil from Fido will speak about his experience and his journey. But Fido has been one of our great successes in our open innovation model. Finding someone with an idea, giving them the real feedback that they needed, and then endorsing them, promoting them, and supporting them along the way. We've done quite well in United Utilities, others are too, and we want to steal some great ideas from others. But we've had some great ideas, and we've had some great results. Why don't I now pass on to Hannah, and she can tell you about UU's leakage story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. So I'm Hannah Wardle. I'm a Network Optimisation Manager at UU. And I'm just going to spend the next few minutes talking about the journey that we've been on. So before I start talking about the real sort of explosion of innovative ideas that we've had over the last few years, I just thought it'd be a really great opportunity to reflect on how leakage management has developed over time. And I'll take that right back to 1870 and a water engineer in Liverpool called George Deacon. Now, George Deacon was the inventor of the Deacon waste meter, and the very first DMA was created off the back of that. And I think, you know, we're quite proud of that kind of heritage at United Utilities. And then moving on to the 1990s, and we saw the graphs earlier around where the leakage industry was when we first really started measuring leakage. And I'll just reflect on some of the things that we did during the 90s. So we started creating large-scale DMAs, and they were probably about 5,000 properties in them, so a lot bigger than what you're normally operating with now. We had demand zones set up so we could track upstream leakage. We used acoustic loggers in city centres for the first time, and we collected data by driving past to get that information. And pressure management really was introduced in the first instance back in the 90s. And these are the foundations that leakage management was built on, and we still use a lot of those principles today. So if I move on to the noughties, And during this time was when we started to really organise our data in a more structured way. We had SMS loggers were introduced, and we could get data daily rather than having to go manually collect that from meters. And we started to look at hydraulic models and how they could be used for leakage hotspotting. Looking back over the last decade, I can reflect on our leakage database, getting better, being connected to both mapping and billing systems, which therefore enabled a higher frequency of updates of both asset and consumption data, which gave us better information to do leakage targeting. At UU, we moved away from the BABE model and we used a mass balance for upstream losses. And then we went through another rollout of data loggers. And this time we're getting 15-minute data. So again, we're in a position where we can respond much quickly to the issues that are occurring. Then we see the emergence of remote control ability on pressure management, and we can become much more efficient in how we optimise our networks. And then if we think about the preparation for AMP7 and the 15% reduction challenge that we all had, and it's at this point that we see this real emergence of innovators. I mean, who would think in the 25 years I've been in the water industry that we would have been using satellites for leakage detection, or our favourite four-legged friends would become the most loved leakage detectives? You know, and with that challenge of the 15% reduction, we got a massive amount of investment at UU, and that enabled us to deploy the largest number of acoustic sensors in Europe. And with that in itself, we created our next problem. So with in excess of 70,000 sensors across our network, how do we process, respond, and manage all of those alerts in a timely way? And that led to the development with FIDO of the AI technology that enables that real-time processing of leak alerts. So if we just move on to our journey. So this chart shows how we have halved leakage since the 1990s. And for 15, 20 years, we remain stable. But our ambition for the future is to reduce leakage by 25% by 2030. And you can see by the graph that that's a hell of a drop that we've got to do. And while we've done really well to keep leakage stable for the last 20 years, in order to make those large-scale reductions, we need to build on the foundations and take advantage of new technologies, data analytics, and better ways of working. So moving on to our focus areas for the future. So within this AMP and for the next ones, for many, many years, our largest focus, both in terms of efforts, people, and cost, has been around the locate and mend. We really need to shift that focus into the prevent and awareness bit. We recognise that we need to take a more holistic approach and be much more aware of our asset health, the operation and maintenance of our assets to really prevent issues occurring. We're going to do this by optimising our assets, using the principles of dynamic network management that will be sensor-led. And hopefully we'll get into a position where we can predict and prevent issues from occurring. Thank you for listening. I'll now hand over to Neil, who will talk about what it's like to be an innovator working with UU.
Thanks, Anna. Hi everyone, Neil Edwards from FIDO. So what's it like to be an innovator? Really difficult is a short answer. Imagine this as a giant dragon's den and you're all dragons. That's what it looks like to us. Okay, so you've all been here for a long time, you understand your challenges, but actually we don't necessarily understand it. So actually being and doing this is a great challenge for us. But innovation, listening to the discussions this morning, innovation isn't just about technology, it's actually processes and commercials as well. And I'll kind of come on to that as part of the discussion. So we started in FIDO, we got into Innovation Lab 2, great reception, but this idea, so FIDO is actually nothing to do with dogs, it's actually free inserted domain observers. Little sensors, insert into a pressure pipe, flow them down, collect the data, map it, listen to leaks, fantastic. That's where we started. First week, crashed into reality of, well, that's not going to fit in there. you're not going to put that in my network. We're not doing that. So we kind of went, oh, okay, we had to pivot very quickly. And luckily, thanks to Hannah's team, we actually had the AI we'd built to do what we were doing actually transferred very quickly to the acoustic logger market. And that's really where the innovation and the ability to pivot very quickly to a new challenge within. So the fail fast, succeed fast was very much in that process. And that was enabled by the people we worked with. You know, they were the getting the right people to the right place at the right time. You know, as an external supplier, if you want to come to one of your businesses, there are dozens of contact points to get through. So to be able to channel it through a single point of contact, and for that single point of contact to then manage the relationship within the organisation, absolutely critical. Without that, we wouldn't be where we are, absolutely. So we did the Fidos, great idea. We're still doing it, actually. We have a challenge to do that, but actually we kind of moved on to the AI model. So, and the Tanya was saying in the data world, so I was at Lisbon last summer. We all have created as much data since lockdown as we have in the whole of history. So the question is, what are you going to do with that data? You're now data rich. You've got to process it and understand it. And we've got various challenges on data lakes, data processing, but actually that's where the machine learning and the AI can help you. You can do this yourself, of course you can, and there are people doing manual analysis, and we're always analysis, but actually there are systems, that processes we can now do this for you in seconds, tirelessly every day going forward. And that's really where we kind of evolved into our process of what we can deliver. And we keep evolving. So actually went from, is this a leak or not a leak, saying actually, well, we now have enough data, and getting access to data we'll talk about. Getting access to data, we now realise we can do a prioritisation model to say we can now recognise to a degree of accuracy a certain amount of sizing, therefore we can steer your resources better to better locations. And I had a comment from some in the room, not sure they're here, was actually finding leaks isn't hard. It's finding the right leaks is the hard bit. You know, no shortage of leaks around there. So the data challenge was really quite strong. And getting that data through was a hard bit. And really this is one of the key bits I want to talk about. And this is where the true value for me, the Innovation Lab came from. If you look at the typical organisation, you've got the IT department, data/IT are grouped together. There's the commercial part, there's the operational part, and of course then the high-level buy-in. And that's absolutely critical as well. Actually, so let's start with the IT bit first. So we go, give me the data. Classic IT response is, you must be joking. You know, we've all been there. And actually having the ability to push through that push of requests to say, no, you need to get this data to this company, we can make it value from it. And that's really what happened. We did that process and we got the value, and they got the value back. So whilst open data is great, we need to have the ability to use and consume data as a business. So getting the data out, and it's open data, process data, you've got to do all the security hoops, but actually, as an external person coming back to that again, without the internal pushers to say, no, right, we're doing this, you talk to them, get me through to the meeting. Trying to do that externally would take months and months and months, if ever. Doing it internally, right, you'll talk to John, and they know, this is another key value, who the blockers are and who the enablers are. And you know who you are in the business, which one you are. And getting through to the enablers to do things done is a key value for us. Operationally, next challenge, actually, we've got this bit of kit or bit of process. We need to get it into the daily BAU of it. You know, we've all gone trials, they've all gone great. Under this trial, it all works fantastically. Now what do we do? Well, we'll put it on the shelf somewhere and kind of ignore it, hopefully, it'll go away. But actually getting the operational people, Hannah's team, thank you, to actually then adopt and use the technology on a day-to-day basis is where the value comes from. And again, that's all wonderful, get it using. Now, someone's got to pay for it. At the end of the day, we're a business. We're not here to do, you know, we've got to make a profit, we've got wages to pay. And actually getting an agreement in place commercially for us was a massive undertaking. Anyone who's ever done a framework agreement will know the pain of doing a framework agreement. And actually, I think one of the points we made earlier, one of the innovations is going to be, I think, in this business is how you engage with people like us. If you insist on this complex, overarching structure of contracts and things, you're going to struggle. Because actually, people haven't got the time and resources to do that process. So I think if Spring can encompass that and change it, great. That's absolutely what we need, because we need to be engaged better in what's going on. Final one, high-level buy-in. Unless there's a top-down approach, so you've got to, I think someone said before, it's a top-down, bottom-up approach. So we engage at the engineering level to make things work, but actually, unless somebody in the top level is going, yes, I want to change things, it won't happen. It'll get lost in the process. So you've got to have this multiple level of engagement to get the structure to work. And again, that's what the lab has brought to us. And I think this is the kind of what we talked about. We're all in this together, and I think this is the point I want to make, is that we need to share knowledge, information, processes, and actually find the conduit to do that. We've done it internally here, but I think if Spring can encompass that better, then all the great. You know, one of the problems we had in the first instance, we were water virgins. We hadn't been in the industry at all with telecoms and data side. What we found was, who is the person to talk to? There are a dozen organisations doing different things. It took us 6 months to a year to understand what everybody did. And that's really wasteful. If you're a new person coming in, there should be a single point of contact that says, okay, go to this person or this organisation, they'll tell you what to do. And that would be a great value as well to us, I think. So. And that was it. So other than I think the plea from Kieran and us to say, if you're an innovator, you've got some great ideas, please do apply. It's a great process to be part of, and enjoy it. Thank you.
Unfortunately, you don't get away yet.
Oh, no.
So there's a number of questions come in, so I've picked those up from Slido. The first question here is, as the incubator for Fido, have you moved the Fido AI into the business as usual and across the whole network and processes? And if not, what's holding back? Is that a question for you, Hannah?
Yeah, I can answer that. So,
It doesn't have to be a question. You can pass it along if you like.
No, that's fine. So, yes, in terms of the sensor analysis of all of our acoustic alerts, that runs through the Fido AI model each day and is distributed to the local areas for them to do the investigations.
Excellent, thank you. And there's another one which kind of in this same sort of area. Is the conversion, this is getting more technical as we go down, but is the conversion rate of points of interest to leaks from Fido comparable with that of an analyst producing points of interest from the acoustic sensors?
So we found an improvement in the number of actual leaks found following the Fido analysis as opposed to pre-Fido.
Okay. And Neil, I was just interested in one of the questions, sort of points you were making as you were talking, and we also had a presentation about Spring, and you're talking about some of the challenges that are dealing with us, whether they be frameworks or just the scale of organisations and understanding who you get to. I'm just interested in your reflections on what you see us doing with Spring. Is this going to be helpful? Is there any guidance you give us, things that we ought to keep front of mind as we go on this journey?
I think the understanding the challenges is one of the key parts, and I think that's part of it. The reality observation is there's a slight disconnect between what the high-level business says they want and the nuts and bolts, the engineering side, as it were. And often there's a disconnect between those two parts. So I think as long as it makes sure you capture the real problem, not the perceived problem. I think that's a key challenge, you know. So without getting the semantics of certain information systems are claimed to be perfect, and you talk to the guy on the street, he goes, "You're kidding, there's nothing like what it should be." So actually, you've got to engage that disconnect in your thinking. I think that's my side.
Please may I build on that?
Please do.
Thank you. I think one of the other advantages for innovators of Spring will be how on earth is a small company expected to run round 21 water and wastewater companies to try and find the right contact person, to try and find the real problem, to try and understand the nuts and bolts? How do you want me to share the information? If I say it like this, will that be highly received? So I think one of the benefits of Spring is just the fact that it is the centre. It's a place that you can go to for your first contact. It won't remove having to have a great relationship with the client, but maybe that can come after you've learned a lot more from the centre. And then the second part is the title of Spring is the Centre of Excellence. So this will be the place that we can put all of our best practice. The best practice from one company plus the best practice from another, we'll be able to make it more visible, easier to access, and then easier to see what is the real innovation that's needed. Because actually, my idea isn't better than the best practice, and therefore maybe I need to rethink. Thank you.
Just want to add a bit to that. I think the ability to come in with ideas rather than fully formed solutions is the key part here, because actually, as we discovered, what we thought we were doing was actually completely wrong. And even though we got to a point that says, great, let's do it, actually in reality it didn't work. But getting lifting the lid a bit and going, actually, these are the problems you've actually got. Oh, actually, we can fix that for you. And it's that engagement channel, I think, will be key.
Right, got a number of, again, ever more technical questions coming in here. With more and more data feeding the AI as we move forward, how long, and we need this exactly to the months and the year, how long until we have greater or almost perfect visibility on leak sizing?
Good one. I'll explain it this way. It's a statistical model. If you pick, let's say 100 leaks, and you pick one, you go, oh, that one wasn't a big one. But if I can steer you to, let's say, a 70 or 80% accuracy rather than just a 50-50 gamble, you've already improved your process. So we're pretty close, you know, it's more data, and we're working with multiple companies in multiple parts of the world, and the model is a permanently reviewing process, but it will improve, but the fact is it already works and is good, it just gets better. So, you know, take it and try it, you know, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And probably one for you, Kieran. How is IP protected so that innovative proposals from outside companies don't end up being delivered by the existing framework partners?
Very good question, thank you. I want all of your money and all your ideas. Yeah. We have found and tried different models over the years, and the one we've centred on is, it's your intellectual property, you keep it. Can that just be a nice clean slate and we go from there? That doesn't mean that we don't want our pound of flesh. Clearly, we want a great contract with you. We want the ability, if I use the Fido example, we want to be working alongside you shoulder to shoulder. We want to work with you to continually improve and develop the products and services. And that will, in turn, optimise how we're currently working. So we don't need people's intellectual property, but we do need that relationship, working relationship, and that ability to continually optimise and innovate. Thank you.
Thank you. So, is the Innovation Hub open to redesigning and or re-evaluating recent innovations that have not been adopted so far as business as usual? Back to you, I think.
Yeah, so the Innovation Hub, first of all, the hub is a physical place. It's a physical centre of where we do some of our innovation. The Innovation Lab is the name of the procurement process. So I'll respond in terms of the Innovation Lab, if I may. So the Innovation Lab, we're interested in any idea you've got. So please don't limit it to absolutely market ready or a white paper. Please, please send us your ideas. You can contact us through those links that Neil shared on the final slide. So you can just reach us throughout the year. Our lab programme happens to be a procurement process, so there is a start and end of when you can apply. In fact, we've just selected our 13 suppliers for our current lab programme, which is our 4th iteration. So we're not interested in the lab as your way of telling us about things until later this year. But you can tell us about your ideas every single day of the week, 24/7 through our website, and if you search for those search terms, you'll find a way to do that there.
These keep coming. I was going to ask a question on acoustic alerts, but another one's come in, so which looks better. Can Fido be expanded to predictive modelling and criticality of leaks as well as volume, including the potential mode of failure to influence reactive escalation?
It's a long question, but I'll go yes. No, we always have this predictive question, and so at the moment the whole palm part is key where we need to get to. But I'd counter saying, actually, if I told you where I thought a leak was going to occur, what would you do with that information? Does it help you do you send someone there in advance of a leak happening? Or do you watch it more closely? So there's a question around, whilst in theory, if I could tell you what's going to happen next with the crystal ball, you could react to it more accurately. But I don't think the processes in the businesses will do that just yet. So even if I could tell you, I don't think you'd use the information, would be my take on it. But yes, predictive is the next, timeline predictive analysis is the next part of what we're doing.
I was just thinking there's an interesting bit going back to the, what's the name of that wretched thing that does all the repairs again in Peppa Pig? Come on, help me. Was he?
Mr. Bull.
Mr. Bull.
Mr. Bull, apparently.
If you could predict a long way in advance and you knew what it was, you might be able to plan, particularly the leaks that you're not going to be able to see, and mobilise that mend part, and make that mend part more efficient.
Yes, there are critical models of failure age type. They're typically, there's quite a few systems out there that do age-related and predictive modelling of failure. So we're very much more in the reactive space. So there's half a dozen providers that do predictive modelling already, so I don't think we want to necessarily compete in that, I don't think.
Super, well, thank you all very much, and a round of applause. Thank you. Yes, I think you got well and truly strafed with questions at multiple levels of detail, so you did incredibly well. So, closing our session this morning, please welcome one of Anglian's own team, Fionn Boyle, Anglian's shop window manager, and he's going to talk us through another Ofwat Innovation Fund winning project, Safe Smart Systems, Embedding Resilience for the Future through Automation and AI. So, welcome, Fionn.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so Fionn Boyle, I manage the shop window at Anglian Water, and I will explain a little bit more about what that title means and the fact that I don't clean windows for a job, although it does create a few laughs every time I speak. But my role today and what I'm presenting on is as the Senior Programme Manager for the Safe Smart Systems Ofwat Innovation Project. Today I'll talk you through an overview of Anglian Water, our innovation platforms, and including our newly evolved shop window incubator. I will briefly touch on the Ofwat Fund, although Ben has already done a great job in terms of explaining the specifics there. And then I'll take you through what actually is Safe Smart Systems, what are its origins and why that is so pertinent to the discussions today, and indeed what we're setting out to achieve. I should hopefully manage my time well enough, although I'm sure Peter will keep me to that, to be able to answer some questions at the end. But I am here all day, so if you would like to talk in the breaks, then please come and find me. So, Anglian Water, who are we? We are the largest geographical water company in England and Wales. We employ over 5,000 people and supply water to 4 million water customers and 6 million water recycling customers in the east of England and Hartlepool. Our region faces some common and unique challenges, such as having 3 of the fastest growing cities outside of London in the UK. 25% of our region is actually below sea level, and most of the area is indeed flat. This means that 60% of our network is directly, and 60% of our customers are directly impacted by a pump for their water supply. So then to innovation in Anglian Water, and it was great to hear from Kieran and Hannah in terms of the model there at UU. I could see a lot of similarities between our companies, and especially in terms of being open. But before I touch on my role and the team that I look after in terms of the shop window, I thought it would be useful to describe our innovation strategy, our system, and indeed the wider team of which I form part, our innovation engagement team. At Anglian Water, at the beginning of this AMP, we chose to decentralise innovation. Rather than have a central team, we see it as everyone's responsibility to explore and to innovate. As such, we have created a system that best enables our people to do this. We do still have specific teams with responsibilities for specific aspects of this system, but we are no longer one central innovation function. With eyes on engagement, discovery, and application, we have seen that we've been able to accelerate the pace of innovation in our organisation and nurture what was already a strong culture for innovation and operational excellence. Some of the best ways in which we do this are through our innovation platforms. Our Water Innovation Network and WaterStart are great examples of how we do this. They offer us the opportunity to share with a close network of over 1,000 suppliers the challenges that we face and allow us the opportunity to connect with a global community in pursuit of progress. And indeed, through those networks, we have formed really close working relationships with international water companies such as Vitens in the Netherlands and Global Omnium in Spain. So then to the shop window, our primary platform for delivering the ideas which we receive through these networks. It's worth explaining that the name shop window does mean something other than me cleaning windows. The idea behind the name comes from the fact that if you were a shop owner, you would want to put your best products in your shop front, to invite people in, entice them, have a conversation and potentially do business, building strong relationships with them and engaging them. It was established back in 2015-16, so it's not a new initiative. It was the first of its kind to bring place-based innovation to the water sector. It began life as a small, discrete area with 4 DMAs and 1 catchment for water recycling. Since conception, it's provided a platform for our organisations, people, customers, and indeed our supply chain, as we set out to create a vision of what a future water company could be. To date, we've run close to 200 projects with over 160 partners in pursuit of that progress, from trialling smart metering to developing a whole strategy around smart water systems. Anglian Water has seen numerous strategies developed and rolled out as a result of coming through that space. But the real power of these explorations comes from our model in delivery. We have a modest team in the shop window, but with only 4 people, including myself. We exist to facilitate and to help our business innovate. The real value and progress is driven by those individuals who work there. The Chris Uttons, the James Pounders, the Hayley Bruces that exist within our teams, and of course the leaderships which are there to support them. An example of some of the progress that we've made is the Smarter Drop campaign. It set a new standard for customer engagement and water efficiency, and actually achieved record lows of averages of 104 litres per person per day against a national average of 150 litres per day. And indeed, we actually saw some customers as low as 80 litres per person per day. We have seen numerous suppliers utilise this platform and that it creates to go from research projects through to framework suppliers with us. Working with these SMEs, we have helped these companies to grow and develop intellectual capital which they can now offer to the global market. And I think the best example of those is the fact that when they left us, that wasn't what they came in with to begin. The best examples have been those companies that have come to us, built something different, gone back again and come in once more to develop further. But like all good examples of innovations, there were failures. There were shortcomings that we needed to learn from. When we reflected back on what we needed to change, we saw an opportunity to grow our area physically and in terms of ambition. So now our shop window covers full operational managers areas across both water and water recycling. This allows us to address a wider array of operational challenges, touch a more diverse set of assets, and rather than stopping at the end of a trial phase, move into incubating the first implementation of these solutions at a system level. This is a primary focus of developing people and process aspects of innovation to create the future operating model of Anglian Water and to demonstrate that possibility to the industry. Our ambition is to take the successes that we have seen there and amplify it through this new focus, whilst at the same time being able to share those successes with the industry as we collaborate under the sector strategy, which Carly highlighted earlier, and providing a location to bring innovation to life through things like Spring and through the Ofwat Innovation Fund with projects such as Safe Smart Systems. And to touch on briefly what we needed in order to bring this to life was a new strategy around innovation. Our incubator strategy takes from the McKinsey 7S framework to consider our organisation in its fullest sense. We are targeting develops against key initiatives such as asset delivery, customer experience, and smart. But the way in which we consider these is right from the front line through to the back office. For it to be successful, we've boiled things down into 3 core pillars: hyper-awareness, informed decision-making, and fast execution. Hyper-awareness is about understanding the business and situational context that we exist within. Informed decision-making is about having a data-led culture, one which trusts and values data, and where our employees feel empowered to make decisions about their own future. Fast execution is simply about being able to do things faster in this area than anywhere else in our business. For people to engage with this process and to want to incubate within one specific geography, their lives need to be easier as a result of being part of that process. And to that end, our directors have supported this at the highest level. Indeed, Peter has asked us to establish a shop window management board, which takes a proportion of our current management board alongside future leaders within our organisation to have responsibility for making sure that what is driven through the shop window is truly transformational. So then to the Ofwat Innovation Fund. As Ben said earlier, it launched in January 2021. And for me, in terms of the impact that it's had on our industry, I think it's already a world-leading example of how not only it can nurture collaboration between water companies and suppliers, but in fact closing the gap between regulators and those companies that they regulate. Just this week, we had the launch event for Safe Smart Systems at Jacobs' offices in London, and we welcomed Harry Armstrong to come in and join us as we set out on that journey and to be part of establishing a vision and the objectives that we have within the project. So finally, getting to it, what is Safe Smart Systems and why am I here? Well, before I go into the ambition, the aims and the objectives of the project itself, it's probably worth reflecting on some of the organisations that you see there. And as I said, why is this pertinent to today's discussions? So to highlight a couple, Portsmouth Water and Affinity. When the fund launched, we approached the Leakage PIC steering group and saw an opportunity to leverage that collaboration and commitment to the PIC in building a bid which could be truly transformational and answer some of the questions which would come out of the route map, which was indeed in its early days of conception at the time. From there, we set out collectively to find a truly transformational project that could bring value to the industry. Safe Smart Systems is the culmination of that work. We have since onboarded all of the partners that you see here today, partners from across the world, with Jacobs playing a key role in supporting the bid's development and now into its delivery. Coming to a final focus, which is about embedding resilience through our systems with automation and AI. We took a step back to consider where we sit as an industry and perhaps more importantly, where we're perceived to sit. We face a grim reality in the future if nothing were to change from where we are today. Despite mammoth efforts across our industry, and I'm speaking to you all as the experts and the driving force for that change, we still face a significant challenge that with leakage levels and water losses, alongside complex external challenges such as climate change, population growth, and cyber threats, that parts of our country could run out of water within the next 20 years. As a sector, we're perceived to be reactive and constantly firefighting. We struggle to see the bigger picture. We are perceived to be reliant on new assets to build our way out of those problems, and we are ill-equipped with inconsistent data standards and frameworks, resulting in minimum system-level integration. With the aim of embedding resilience in our systems through advanced analytics, automation, and AI, Safe Smart Systems sets out to address these issues and perception in three main areas. At its core is not a simple aim to deliver outcomes of a project within one part of our country, within the shop window area. This is about providing value for the sector and enabling the scaling of successful solutions and approaches developed through that area. This starts with a playbook, setting out the how-to guides for others to learn from, and comprised of new data standards, frameworks, and specifically advancing a cybersecurity framework which will ensure that our systems are secure by design and future-ready. This is followed by the development of a key step towards CPNI's National Digital Twin Programme, where collaborating with them directly and through CDBB, we will form the UK's very first data landscape, which will not only provide clarity for data standards and governance in water, but indeed allow other sectors to follow suit. Then to the infrastructure required to enable our systems to be managed in different and more complex ways. Building the physical opportunity for these advanced control and configuration systems to come to life. Before finally bringing in an additional level of intelligence through automated control, where it adds value to do so, to embed this long-term operational resilience in how we operate our systems. All of this will be supported with new ways of working, and I mean that in two senses. The first is in how our people will interact with systems in the future. what is the workforce of the future and how do we include more diverse skills in that. But the second is how do we deliver this project? You saw the number of partners that were there, the number of water companies, suppliers, academia coming together and trying to drive this forward. That's new and different to us. So how do we make that successful? So through the shop window, we shared a platform for incubating new ways of working for the sector. And we're looking to demonstrate a solution which evidences where advanced analytics, automation, and AI can add value for our customers and for the environment. But we aren't starting from scratch here. We aren't trying to reinvent the wheel, as Carly said earlier. We expect to uncover through discovery and agile methodologies in delivery, where along with our systems, we can add value to what is already an area of water filled with innovation, as Jeremy talked to earlier this morning. We will have a series of modules prioritized through consideration of the entire system, identified with use cases through which value can be driven for customers and the environment through automation and artificial intelligence. So where are we now? We're in mobilization. We're just getting into the start of our delivery plan, setting up the culture that we expect to see across our partners, preparing ourselves for this adventure, and I mean that in a literal sense, we're about to set out on. Indeed, across the past few days, as I said, in London, we've been working with our partners to develop this collaborative spirit as we led that launch event. I want to call out a potential elephant in the room, which also came out through that launch event. I expect many of you will be looking at me now as I come towards the end of my presentation, going, yeah, okay, it sounds good, but what is it? There's uncertainty around that, but that's okay. Actually, we've seen that many of our partners are still in this place, but we expect that to happen with where we are in this project. I've talked to you about how we went through the selection of our partners, how we've brought those together, the challenges that we all know that we face as a sector. Those things are tangible, they're real, and they're certain. But where we go from here is still very intangible. It feels theoretical. This can be uncomfortable, but that is okay. True transformational innovation cannot be achieved if you're delivering what you already know. Accepting that uncertainty and coming together with commitment, purpose, will allow us to ensure that the work that we deliver will identify great opportunities, linking back to the PALM methodology and the route map that we've already heard about today, and not just doing more of what we already know, but preparing to build a truly future-facing water industry. Our programme is 5 years in total, and from when we were announced as winners, and we're quite unique in the fund still to date. We're the longest running programme, and we have the largest funded budget to date. Across the coming phases, we will move through discovery, as I've said, to identify those value cases, begin building and testing, and having the time with the system both in advisory and then hopefully moving into autonomous control of those selected modules that we look to drive the most value from. I think the most important message for us to leave you all with, though, has to be twofold. The first is that innovation and collaboration aren't easy. With such a diverse range of partners, we face a challenge, but also a huge opportunity to develop truly transformational innovation through this project and deliver outcomes for the whole industry. But we also know that the road to progress is difficult, and it won't be without setbacks. But with the right partners, the right values, and a high degree of resilience and persistence, we will be able to achieve something special through this collaborative effort that will benefit our industry, our customers, our environment, and even our regulator. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a few questions coming on Slido for you. If I back into just the past presentation, looking at Safe Smart Systems, to what extent did we consider, it says, I think this is Northumbrian Waters, but to what extent did we consider other control systems that are being used rather than something which appears all incredibly new?
Well, so through the benchmarking, as we go through the first probably 3 to 6 months of the programme, we'll be carrying out quite detailed benchmarking, understanding what already exists. As I said, we're not looking to try and reinvent the wheel with this project. We want to see what the best of the industry has, and then look to make sure that what we do with this money is being spent in the right way, so we are driving that value for customers and the environment.
And I know from the history of this particular project, we spent a lot of time in Spain, didn't we, looking at Global Omnium, who've probably got one of the most developed digital twins out there, which was kind of a baseline, really, for a lot of the work, wasn't it? There's a general question about innovation in Anglian. So what is the process for taking a successful innovation or trial from that shop window to the wider business?
So well, the process starts before the shop window. We have a number of groups in water. They refer to them as innovation technical review groups. And they're fantastic in terms of driving innovation through the business, because it brings in experts, subject matter experts and frontline staff into that process, who then help shape the opportunity, review the trial, the potential trials that we might do. Moving through the trial process then and coming out the other end, we've established a process which really considers how to scale and integrate. So rather than being focused on just technology, we're looking to consider the cultural aspects to scaling, what might need to change, and how do we help people manage that change? What are the underlying infrastructure requirements needed? Because of course, in the shop window, we're investing heavily in those solutions. Those solutions don't always exist elsewhere in the business, nor does the underlying infrastructure always exist. So we need to plan that in either through our in-AMP investment programs or further on. And we also look to understand exactly what assets exist wider in our business, because of course you can't just scale every innovation to every part of your company. So you need to understand exactly how that can fit. But we've got a really detailed process for how we do that assessment to make sure that we're not trying to overpromise, and then we can be very clear about where we want to go, both internally and speaking to our supply chain.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Finn.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Well done. So I think we've heard quite a lot about the real transformational change that's going on which is underway within our industry at the moment, certainly in terms of the innovation and collaboration. I think we've seen spring as a fantastic opportunity to step up, and you've got an invitation to engage, and it'll be as successful as we want to make it, frankly. So you've had that invitation, the door is open, spring is there, it's ours, we need to use it. We've seen, I think, some great examples of open innovation. You've heard from Finn, you've heard from colleagues at United Utilities, and you can see the benefits that are coming out, and you've heard some examples of where we've had those who are producing the products and services telling us how they need to work with us and the sorts of changes we need to make, which I think is also important for us to keep front of mind. And you've heard a bit about the sort of idea about how do you go from trial to roll out. You know, that whole idea of you pilot something, great idea somewhere, but it's still a great idea 10 years later, but it hasn't really been rolled out. And there's a lot more focus on that, which I think is encouraging to see. And I think you've just seen a sense of some of these transformational projects are actually quite difficult. They're not just regurgitating the old, they're not just doing stuff we all understand and feel comfortable with. By their very nature, they have to be uncomfortable and take us into a different space to actually make progress. So some really good examples, and thank you to everybody for your contribution, and thank you for the questions as well. So we're going to break for lunch and networking, and again looking at the exhibitions out there. Now, Bob, we're going to resume promptly at 2:25 when you take the helm. So Bob's going to chair the afternoon. So 2:25. If you want to make Bob really happy, be sitting there at 2:25, attent and pointing forwards. Anyway, I'll give it a go. We'll see.
The door at 2:25.
You're going to okay. It's a more directive approach. But thank you all for your contributions. Thank you again for your questions, and do have a great lunch, everybody. Thank you.